what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
And we are live. Greetings to our loyal WFYL listeners around the world. Welcome back to your Philadelphia live stream, only on the Freedom Station. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in once again, because you still have the right to hear and the right to be heard. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G. As always, with me are Philly Chris, Russ the producer, and Liberty Lee. And you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters. And you can listen to our program every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So let's be heard. I want to remind our listeners that you can participate in the free and open exchange of thoughts and ideas throughout the entire week by visiting MikeGinTheMorning.com. What's it called, Philly Chris? Oh, yeah, I forgot that part of the show. We only do it every single time for 3 years in a row. That's right. I forgot.
I was still muted. I apologize.
What's it called?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
How about you, Russ?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
Liberty?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
Special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Richard S. Roberts Jr. What's it called?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
That is correct, sir. You can check out all the shenanigans that Mike G and Philly Chris are up to throughout the entire week. Check out our social media profiles. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your barber, tell your Uncle Jerry, tell anybody who listen to check us out at MikeGinTheMorning.com. I also want to remind our listeners about the powerhouse lineup we've got here at the Freedom Station. Kick off your mornings with Scott Adams. Bring you the Scott Adams Show weekdays from 9 a.m. until 11. We've got Dan the Man Bongino. Bring you the Dan Bongino Show weekdays from noon until 3 p.m. We've got the headliner, intellectual giant Ben Shapiro. Bring you the Ben Shapiro Show weekdays from 3 to 5 p.m. And finally, we love having him at the Freedom Station family. We've got Michael Knowles. Bring you the Michael Knowles Show weekdays from 5 to 6 p.m. So don't forget to tune in and show him some love. And with that, you know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hit it, Russ.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
If you're just checking in with us, we've got a very special guest on the program today. We've got Richard S. Roberts Jr., attorney and other half of the Justice Brothers. He is here bringing us news of his major victory in the Court of Appeals. And in light of the episode where John came on and told us about his comeback story, his upbringing, a lot of people had many questions about the system. And Attorney Roberts deals with CYS every single day, defending parents in these situations. So I'm sure we're going to have quite a few general questions for you as well, Attorney Roberts. But Rich, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to be back. It's been a little while, but thanks for inviting me back on.
It's been far too long. Did you have a new job or something over the last year or something that you've been busy?
No, man, there's a lot of people in the world that need my help. They need some good help. They need the best attorney in Pennsylvania. They call me. What can I say?
That sounds about right. It's almost like you're heading up a completely brand new office over in the Lehigh Valley, helping people in criminal defense cases and CYS since last June, right?
Well, that could be it. Maybe that's a little something to do with it.
Busy man. So, Rich, we had this news come in about this victory in the Court of Appeals within the last couple of weeks. We wanted to get you on the program to talk about it. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what happened?
All right. So this case is out of York County, Pennsylvania, so South Central Pennsylvania. I represented a young mother who was involved with CYS for a long period of time. According to the court, things were not going her way, and they petitioned to involuntarily terminate her parental rights. Now, in Pennsylvania, there's a termination of parental rights statute, which has 8 different subsections. And when the agency feels that no matter what they do, you can't improve your surroundings, you can't improve on your parenting skills, you can't improve on your situation, they will move to involuntarily terminate your parental rights.
Now, Rich, is there a bunch of different steps that happen before it comes to that? So how does this all start with CYS? I mean, we might have listeners who don't even know what CYS is.
Well, CYS is Children and Youth Services, Children and Youth Agency. Some people call it CPS, Child Protective Services. It's the way it's referred to in other states. In Pennsylvania, it's the Agency of Children and Youth. It's a county by county agency. So depending on what county you're in, each county has a different one. All 67 have their each. And then there's an overarching statewide agency that really doesn't come into play unless there's a conflict or that CYS is dealing with a foster family. So if a foster family taking care of a foster child placed by the state is involved in some sort of investigation, they don't allow the local agency because typically the local agency has too much communication involvement with the foster family. So the state agency will come in and handle that case. The way a CYS case starts in Pennsylvania is a referral is made. And it's important to understand the distinction because there's two kinds of referrals. There's a CPS, a Child Protective Services referral, and a General Protective Services referral, which is a GPS. Now, the difference is the Child Protective Services law defines child abuse, okay? And a CPS is when they get a referral from either a concerned citizens, a mandated reporter, a doctor, a teacher, whomever, and the allegations involve child abuse as defined under the statute. So something like physical abuse, sexual abuse, leaving your child with a registered sex offender, things like that would target what they call a CPS investigation. The reason it's important is because your obligations as a parent are different depending on what kind of investigation there is. When there's a Child Protective Services investigation, the agency has to make contact with the subject child within 24 hours. It is under the statute, they have to come to the home. They must interview the child without the presence of the parents, including every other child who's in the home. So anybody who's under the age of 18, the statute commands that. You certainly, in those situations, have a right to refuse. However, every court that I know of will issue either a search warrant or at that point probably take your children away. So it's important if you're involved in one of these things, besides getting a lawyer, understanding what the investigation is first. Because CPS investigations are very regimented and dictated by statute. There's also a GPS investigation, which is called General Protective Services. So that can include things that are child abuse as defined by the statute, but could be basically anything. So your child shows up to school and hasn't taken a shower in a couple of days, not getting enough food, truancy cases, right? Your child's missing too much school and you haven't provided adequate excuses. In that situation, CYS comes out to see whether or not you can, quote, properly take care of your children. You're providing proper parental care and control. In that situation, the ability of CYS to really dictate what goes on is quite limited because there's not statutory language commanding their ability to be able to do really much of anything in those situations. And it's important to understand the difference because the way you can behave and the way I will behave and educate you and advise you on how to proceed with this investigation differs depending on what investigation it is. So in the case involving this, it was a General Protective Services investigation. The child was removed from the home following the arrest of the mother. At that point, they were placed in foster care. She was incarcerated for a period of time. She had gotten out and been dealing with CYS for, I don't know, almost a year by the time she called me, and I got involved. So when CYS gets involved with a child, you can either have voluntary compliance or involuntary compliance. So CYS typically comes with what they call a family service plan. Like, here are the issues that you struggle with. Here's what we want you to do. Now, one thing that every individual in the state has to understand is CYS, except for very limited circumstances that we discussed in a Child Protective Service investigation, has no inherent authority to make you do anything, right? Now, when they come to your house, they certainly don't act like that. They're certainly not nice. They're kind of like the police when they show up. But they have no inherent authority to make you do anything. Nothing. You have no obligation to listen to them, no obligation to talk to them, no obligation to do anything, right? And that's one of the things when I approach a case is I tell them right away, like, this is a voluntary situation. At any point, you can tell them to go pound sand. I'm not doing it. Now, depending on the facts of the case, that may or may not be advisable, depending on what the allegations are and what evidence they have for it, because if you refuse to comply, they can make you do it, but it has to go through a judge. It has to be judicially mandated. So what they will do is file what they call a dependency petition. A dependency petition, generally speaking, they have to plead and prove that the child or children lack proper parental care and control. So you are doing something or not doing something with effects to health, safety, welfare, morals, things like that. For example, if you're not making your child go to school, missed 100 days of school, hasn't been sick for 100 days, that could be a lack of proper parental care and control. In that situation, you have a right to an attorney, a right to a hearing, and the agency has to prove that by clear and convincing evidence, which isn't quite beyond a reasonable doubt, but the way the law defines it is evidence that's so weighty that the judge doesn't have hesitation making his or her decision as to whether or not. So in that situation, if they can prove or the judge finds that there's a lack of proper parental care and control, the child or children is declared dependent. And at that point, the agency always takes legal custody of the child and will sometimes take physical custody of the child, which means the child is forcibly removed from your home. If that occurs, you have the permanency review process, which is basically at the end of the dependency proceeding, if they have found the child dependent, the court will say, okay, here are the issues I find that the parent or parent struggles with. Is it substance abuse? Is it mental health counseling? Whatever it is. And it will order you, I want to do these things to show me that you can provide proper parental care and control for the child. And the deficiencies I see, I want you to resolve those deficiencies through this. So they set up a permanency review. You go back to court every 3 to 6 months. The court holds a review. They talk to the child. What are you doing? What are you not doing? And the idea is that through that period of time, you will improve on the issues that was identified. You fix the problems that you have. At the end of the day, if the kids were removed from home, they're returned. If not, the case is eventually closed. If, however, during that process, the court believes rightly or wrongly, or the agency believes rightly or wrongly, mostly wrongly, that the parent hasn't progressed sufficiently or as quickly as they wanted to or anything like that, they can petition the court to involuntarily terminate your parental rights, which legally speaking means if that petition is granted, you are legally no longer the parent of that child. You have no rights in their education, their upbringing. You can't make decisions where they go to school, where they don't go to school, who they go with. You're not even able to told if they're adopted, who they're adopted to. You're legally as if that child is no longer yours. There's no financial obligation, no ethical obligations, no nothing. So it's, as the Supreme Court has described it, it is the death sentence for parents. So in this particular case, they petitioned for termination of parental rights, and the judge granted the petition and terminated my client's parental rights. But what you have to understand is because the result of a termination is so severe that you are legally no longer the parent, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has said there's an Adoption Act, which mandates specific procedures that must be followed, and they have to be strictly complied with because you have a due process right. You have a constitutional right to raise your children as you see fit. That is a fundamental right under both the Pennsylvania and United States Constitution. So in this case, which is most significant, when you file the termination petition, the agency must provide the legal grounds that they're seeking termination, and they have to specifically write what is the factual basis. So what has the parent done? What have they not done? What were the issues that brought them involved? What were the issues that we wanted to see resolved? How are they still continuing? In this particular petition, didn't have a single factual averment anywhere in it. So I remember when I was given the petition and it was sent to me via email and they served my client, I emailed immediately the solicitor back and said, where's the rest of it? Because I've been doing this for a period of time and I've been involved in a few termination proceedings, more than a few at this point. And they're typically like 80, 90 pages because they say, mother in this number of year became involved. The baby was born with drugs in their system, whatever. We went to court. We're declared dependent. We gave them these 10 things. They, failed out of outpatient. They dropped out of inpatient. They went for an evaluation. They were unsuccessfully discharged. And it goes through step by step, every court hearing, what they've done, what they didn't do, what was good, what was bad, what was ugly. This had nothing. And they said no. So I file a motion with the trial court and say, hey, you don't have jurisdiction because failure to comply with the Adoption Act or strict compliance is a jurisdictional issue. You have no jurisdiction to hear this. It doesn't comply with the Adoption Act. You need to dismiss the petition. And about 2 hours after I filed the motion to dismiss, it was denied by the court. There's no response from the agency. It was literally denied by the court. I think I hit send.
2 hours.
It's been accepted. Order denying petition. I went, okay. Well, let's see. They put a lot of thought in that. I read it. So we end up going to termination. There were some other issues that arrived.
Was there any reason why the denial took place? Was there anything mentioned in the order, or was it just denied?
No,
because
one line
denied?
order. Right. Mother's petition to dismiss the involuntary termination of parental rights business is denied. Have a nice day.
Denied.
Yes, so it is
why? Just denied.
It was denied. So
interestingly,
it's the
it was just interestingly. Right? So, right. So we appeal the decision, and Mike knows too. If you appeal a decision, the first thing is you put a notice of appeal. You tell the judge, here's all the things you did wrong. Right. Here's why I think you're wrong. Here's why it should be overturned. So the trial judge, for the benefit of the appellate court, has to write an opinion as to why what I'm complaining about, he did everything right. So, of course, because he only gave me the one sentence order, I'm very curious how he defends this. So he goes through it and he says, well, while the agency's factual averments could have been clearer, it's close enough. And I went, okay. The problem with the factual averments is all the agency did was rewrite the legal standard for termination as a factual averment. Said mother.
No, Richard. The problem with the factual averments is that there were not any. That was the problem.
There was not any. So he tried to justify it. And I think what I remember in my brief I write, well, the problem with the judge's perception here is mother did this or mother did that. And I was like, a factual averment, it doesn't use a disjunctive, right? You did something. You didn't do this or you did that. You may have done this and you did that, but you can't or something in a factual averment because all they did was he tried to couch the legal conclusions of trial judge, but they didn't put anything. So that was my main focus during the termination petition hearing. One thing that the agency always tries to do, and it's very important for your attorney to notice this, is they will come in and they will say, hey, I want to incorporate the record from the dependency petitions. So testimony, orders, well, that's all hearsay. And I understand that it's pretty related. The judge is usually the same. The attorneys are usually the same. They know the issues, but it's a separate proceeding. It's in a different court. Dependency cases occur in juvenile court. Termination occurs in orphans court. And you have to make the agency prove their case. If they're going to put you and try to have your client terminate his or her parental rights, you're proving your case. You're not getting any help. Yeah, that's okay. That's in. And in this case, it was important because I had not been the attorney the whole time. I was involved for one permanency review hearing before they terminated. I was like, I don't know what questions were asked, what was asked, what were the orders. So I objected. The judge's like, no, we do that all the time. I go, Your Honor. And then, so in his 1925A opinion, there's a bench book for dependencies. The judge cited to the bench book as the reason he incorporated it. And the agency got about 15 questions by the appellate court about what authority does the legal bench book have? I didn't realize that was a source of law. Can you
explain what a bench book is for?
So a bench book is just a basic 30,000 foot overview for a judge about here's the general way things should go. Here's a general view of the law and just some things to look out for. It's to help judges who are not, experts in this particular area of law to trudge through it, to be honest with you. The unfortunate thing is
it is not the law, though.
Right. It's not the law. It's just like, hey, this is how we do things. In the bench book, it says typically the prior juvenile dependency matter is incorporated therein. And I go, okay, well, that's typical. And in cases that I cited to the court was said, well, yeah, typically there's an agreement, right? Both sides just say, yeah, we don't have to go through this. You can incorporate that, right? There was no agreement. right? They sent me a stipulation of facts, and I didn't want to sign the stipulation of facts. Said, you got to prove your case. And he was like, at the oral argument in Superior Court, he's like, well, we sent counsel a proposed stipulation of facts, and he refused to sign it. And the judges went, well, does he have to sign it? I don't understand. If he doesn't sign it, you just have to put on your facts. Why does he look bad? Because he refuses to make you do your job. I don't get it. So, I don't get why that's a problem. So we ended up being unsuccessful on the termination of parental rights. So we go to appeal it, and this is a judge. And my first issue is, you didn't put any factual basis. You violated the Adoption Act, and therefore the court didn't have jurisdiction. You should have dismissed the petition. I also do the incorporation, and I challenge the clear and convincing evidence for the termination itself on the merits. So we go to oral argument, and I have to be honest, at oral argument, it didn't seem like the three judges really wanted to hear about that argument, which I generally thought was the easiest one to make, and they didn't really want to talk about it. We get it. I got a couple of questions. They really focused on the incorporation of just bringing everything in wholesale, not listening to my objections, hearsay or otherwise. But, we go through it. I didn't think it went well, which I'm sure anybody who's done oral argument in an appellate court would agree. Any attorney goes, I think I got killed. Of course, our wonderful paralegal is there, Mike. I was like, you did great. I'm like, I don't know about that. So we get through it. And then a month later, the decision comes out. It's about 9 pages and said, hey, you didn't comply with the Adoption Act. You failed to set a factual basis whatsoever, and the denial, it should have been dismissed. The court did not have jurisdiction to hear this termination case. They vacated the decree terminating my client's parental rights and remanded it back to court. So at this point, it was a second chance for it. It was the right decision. Hopefully we can force York County, both the agency and the court, to do it right this time. They kind of have shot themselves in the foot at this point, because the court opinion doesn't address the merits. Like, were the facts sufficient to terminate my client's parental rights? It was, as people put derisively, it was like a technicality win. However, following my appeal, I put in a motion to maintain the status quo. So allow my client to continue visiting her child and participate in services. I thought I put in the thing. I think this is a valid issue. I think I'm more likely than not to win on this issue. Here's why. Once again, the court in 2.5 hours denied that motion. So now my client has not been able to see her daughter for almost a year at this point, has not seen her little 3-year-old girl for almost a year, unlawfully and unconstitutionally. And now they're kind of in a situation. We have a hearing coming up in a couple of weeks where I petition to resume visitation and services. And I am very curious to see how the agency is going to position, because I'm sure there's going to be some arguments or issues with the agency that the child's well bonded in her new foster home, not without her mother, who I believe she needs. And, this is a problem. And I will point at them at point blank and go, well, if that's the case, the only people you have to blame is yourself, because you need to follow the law. The law is pretty clear. Right. You put the factual basis in, then I don't have that. Then we're just arguing about whether or not your evidence is sufficient. The only people you have to blame is yourself, right? And unfortunately, this agency and a lot of agencies don't ever think that they've done anything wrong. And the most frustrating thing that I dealing with CYS cases is caseworkers think they're doing God's work. And the worst thing that any of my clients do is say no.
Yeah. Now, I want to back things up a little bit, because you talked about the initial investigation, and you said that if a kid shows up and it seems he hasn't taken a shower in a few days, my first question is, if we show up to the radio station and Russ hasn't taken a shower in a few days, is there anybody we can petition to intervene in that situation?
There may be a crisis mental health team you could call, Mike. Possible 302.
That's right. That's my department. What am I thinking?
There you go.
What am I thinking?
There you go, Mike. I believe you're more familiar with that area of the law than I am. Yeah, you could petition.
In all seriousness, though, what kinds of things can kick off these investigations? Because I'm sure a lot of our listeners would be surprised by some of the things that have triggered these investigations, where the listeners would say, really, that's it? That sort of thing. I think everybody understands that if somebody beats their kid with a baseball bat, it's going to start an investigation of some kind. But I'm sure there lot of lower level type things. Are there any that come to mind, types of situations you've seen that have started these investigations?
Yeah, one that's unfortunately all too common is child goes to the hospital, sick, injured, and doctor says, "Hey, we want to do this," and the parent says, "I don't know if I think that's appropriate. I want to do something else." That can trigger a CPS investigation for failing to listen to a doctor's advice or failing to do something a doctor recommends, seemingly taking away from parents the ability to make medical decisions. And it's nothing, and you would think, well, that doesn't happen. It's nothing so like serious as she's got 105 fever. I don't want to give her Tylenol. It's something so serious like, well, I think she needs to go to this facility and have this done to her. I don't know. I think I want a second opinion. Why do you need a second opinion? I don't think you're right. That triggers it. And they will call CPS, and CPS can come in, say you're not getting appropriate medical treatment, and all of a sudden, fundamental right to help make medical decisions for your child ripped away from you.
That's crazy.
Another one is, a neighbor will see the child crying and you yelling and screaming, and they'll call this mother's yelling at her kid, and that happens. And I had one recently where 12-year-old was complaining that her mother was calling her names. And I remember specifically that I talked to the caseworker, the client hires me, and she said she can't use any, derogatory terms to refer to the child. And I go, okay, well, I hate to be a lawyer, but you have to define derogatory. Right. And she's like, well, you can't call her an idiot. And I go, all right, well, what if the child's like running in the street and you call her an idiot? I mean, she's being an idiot. Is that a problem? And then the lady's like, well, I think you're being a little dramatic. I'm like, and who decides what's a derogatory term? He's like, the child. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. You see where this is going?
The child gets to decide.
Right. Yeah,
unless you refer to me as Royal Highness, you're being derogatory.
Welcome to 2023.
And then the CYS worker in this situation goes, I think you're being difficult. And I go, I don't mean to be frank, but I think you're being an idiot. Like, this is unworkable. Like, what are you talking about? Who lets a 12-year-old make any decisions on their own whatsoever? I'm like, that seems insane to me. But
it's insane.
It's insane. Like, I mean,
Greta Thunberg has the environment figured out, so
right. I don't. She's like, the child. I'm like, the child. When does that happen?
You said they were yelling at the kid, and the kid was crying. Like, what if the kid was trying to make toast in the bathtub or something? I think that you don't want to yell at them over that, right? Teach them a lesson.
Right, and I get it, and I think it's a lot of, I don't know, just being an older individual. The way my parents raised me, I would have been taken away from my dad in about 10 seconds. But and don't get me wrong,
I never said okay.
Child abuse, but
you turned out okay.
What? Yeah, it turned out just fine. I think I'm okay. Yeah, but I think the issue is, and I've had this argument with children and youth all the time, consistently. Just because you would handle a situation differently from my client doesn't mean what my client is doing is wrong. And that is the bottom line. And as soon as you say that to them, they're like, I am not wrong. I'm like, you're completely wrong. You're just completely wrong. My client is making a decision that they have a right to make as a parent, period. Just
Where's that coming from,
Rich? Down and have a 25-minute discussion about why touching the stove when it's on is bad, and my client just grabs his arm and pulls him away, doesn't make what he did wrong, and what you do, the 25-minute about why you shouldn't touch something hot, and show on Google about the blisters you'll get and the permanent disfigurement. You don't have to do that. Don't be an idiot. Don't touch the stove. There's nothing wrong with that.
I love that. Chris, were you asking a question?
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, where this, where's this is coming from? Because, when I grew up, everything you're talking about was kind of normal parenting, but it seems like now it's just so far off the rails. Is it the younger generation you're seeing this with, like these people working at these agencies? Like, how are they even having that mindset? I'm just having trouble even understanding how they could talk to you that way or view it that way. Where is it stemming from? Is it the schooling?
I think it is a lot to do with the younger generation, and I'll get in trouble. I think therapists have a very weird view on what's good and bad for children, and that is seeped into the children and youth organization about, appropriate discipline methods and things like that. And I think we've come a long way from using a stick to beat your kid outside, which I don't think is appropriate. But I mean, there's a long way from that, and then what some of those therapists advocate for. And I think that the therapists who treat children and become way overprotective do a lot of damage to these kids. And I think they ruin families, frankly, because I don't think they let kids be kids, and I don't think they let parents be parents. And I think that when you have to have a discussion and explain everything to a 12-year-old about why something's being done, is a problem, frankly. And when my clients come in and I go, well, they have to explain to them why they're in trouble. No, listen, they're 10, they're in trouble. You don't do that. Why? Because I told you to. That's the end of the discussion. I don't understand why it's a problem.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of CYS workers who believe that you have to have a conversation, understanding with the child and understand this. And again, it's bothersome to me, just the way these people come off. And then the attitude that a lot of them have, most of them have, that when you question them, it's like you've questioned Jesus Christ himself. And
sure.
I go,
yeah, they're in charge or the authority. I wonder how many of them are actually parents. It'd be interesting. I don't know if you can ask them that, but I wonder how many. Yeah.
I have asked that to therapists and CYS workers, and you'd be surprised at how much of them aren't. And, judges sometimes are okay with that. A lot of judges kind of push it off. I did have an interesting thing in this case that we won on appeal. So I said at some point during I was making an objection, and I said something, she's like, she's just a caseworker. And the solicitor for CYS stands up in a huff. He's like, I object to Attorney Roberts' characterization as, quote, just a caseworker. These are professional judges. Like, I understand, Attorney Roberts, that is wildly inappropriate to say just a caseworker in that demeaning tone. She's been doing this for a lot of years. And you have a degree, don't you? She says, yes, I have a bachelor's degree. And he goes, yeah, what's your bachelor's degree? And he goes, criminal justice. And I go, well, that qualifies her to deal with children are appropriate. It's everything you need to know. And the judge was like, that's enough out of you. And I go, all right, I think I just made my point. Like, okay. Because, and I'm sure there's a lot of them that try to do their job the best they can. But I think even if they come in with the best of intentions, there's a lot of people that corrupt the industry and then have this mindset that when they walk into a situation, their jobs are and their mission is to keep families together and help families. And I find it all too often, at least in the cases that I deal with, that they work too hard to rip these families apart and drive wedges between them and stick a parent against a child. Or if there's a acrimonious or about in the middle of a divorce, they'll have parents against each other, take one side against the other. And it drives me insane. I'm like, this is not really helping the children, nor is it responding to your mission. So, your idea is find the parents that really do need help and help them. And I've said more than once, I'm positive they walk into terrible situations where there's an infant, there's two substance abuse people, there's needles and stuff, and the baby's crawling around. And I understand that. I do. I get it. And you see that. And I've never had one of those clients hire me, right? I've never had one said, yeah, I left my 2-year-old crawling around in the bathroom, and that's where me and my wife go and do, our drugs, and my bad. I've never had that. But the issue is that when you come to a client like mine, who's a good family, who may be going through a tough spot, they're not them. You're not treating my clients like you treat those individuals, because here's a situation where the family's okay, going through a trouble spot possibly, or maybe you've done nothing wrong at all, and you're not going to treat them that way. Bottom line.
You were saying that you have to have this conversation with them, that just because you wouldn't have done it that way doesn't mean they've done anything wrong. Do they want there to be some kind of technical manual where each and every decision must be made in a very specific way that's already been predetermined by whom? By them? By the government?
I think they read too many books, and this is where the book says it's appropriate way to deal with this particular situation. At which point,
book,
I go back to Philly
which book, though?
Yeah, and there's different ways. And I go, well, we read it in this whatever therapy book. And I go, great. Have you ever raised a child? No, I don't have any kids. Then I'm not talking to you anymore. Go away. Because I have no use for you. I have no use for you. I have no use for you. None whatsoever. Well, I read in a book that kids who are told that they're dumb will grow up to be dumb. And I go, all right, well, good for you, but that's not my reality. It's the same people. They had what was that lady my wife and I were talking about the other day? They had the Tiger Mom, was really tough on their kids, and they had a bunch of people came out and said it was great. A bunch of people said it was child abuse. And then I find out years later, both children go to MIT. I'm like, listen, if both your kids are at MIT and you're complaining that was child abuse, listen, you can abuse those kids because, you don't get any legacy admissions at MIT. You're just smart.
Right.
I go, listen, they're both in MIT. I think she did something right. So whoever said she was doing something wrong, I think you should look in the mirror a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely not Harvard.
Yeah, it's not Harvard, where you can get in. But what I mean is the issue you have is the government, and I agree because CYS is the agency and they're children and youth and they're founded by the county, seem to have an idea when they get involved that you have to do these things and raise your children the way I tell you to do it. Right. And I have to tell you to do it because whatever you're doing before was wrong and it didn't work. And that's why I'm here. And the problem is I work every day with my clients to fight that issue because I think that parents have the absolute right to raise their kids as they see fit within the bounds of the law. There's certain things you absolutely can't do. But, when I get a client hired and these people are overstepping, which happens when the people call me, I make it a point to stop it. And I've been called difficult. I've been called rude. I've been called you just setting yourself to be litigation. I'm like, no, I'm here to protect my client's right to raise their kids as they see fit and not have your influence whatsoever because you have no right to do so.
That's another interesting point about CYS litigation. When I came to court with you on that one particular case, I got the sense that the other attorneys who are involved with these sorts of cases on a regular basis are not built the way, let's say, criminal defense attorneys are. And that it seems that there's a good deal of go along to get along, more of a collaborative type thing, even if it's not in the best interest of your client, where you and I in the criminal defense context, we're used to, hey, everything's on the line. Our client's going to jail for a really long time if we don't win this thing. And so we go out there and we fight. And having somebody with your attitude and your skill set step into that world seems like it's extremely overwhelming for the opposition. And I don't know if maybe I don't know you as a shy guy who's not going to be willing to say that. So, but is that the impression that you've gotten over the years in litigating CYS issues?
I have from caseworkers, not so much anymore because I know a lot of them and they see me coming. But at first, they are kind of put off. And what I found is there's a lot of go along to get along with attorneys that I see that do this, I guess, more than me, because it's a situation where the parents are scared and like, listen, just do what they tell you to do, get them out of your life. And I'm like, well, hold on. Why do we have them in our life to begin with? Why are we waiting till the end? I remember picking up a case was hired after the child was declared dependent, right? And I'm getting the facts of the case and I get the file from the prior attorney and I'm looking at it going, I don't think these children were dependent, So I show up to court and I see the attorney who was there before as a court appointed attorney. And I go, well, here are the facts. Here's a couple of cases. The children shouldn't have been declared dependent. I'm like, what happened here? It's like, oh, we agreed to dependency. And I go, well, why'd you do that? It was like, well, because CYS says they weren't going to remove the kids from the home. And I go, well, what? And it shocked me because I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now they're under the thumb of CYS via a court order, and they have to listen to certain things they do. And now I'm fighting from behind the eight ball. So the idea is that go along to get along allows them into your life. And I think the most important thing to do in all of these cases is stop them before the door is even open, both figuratively and literally in some aspects. Right? Because what happens is they're in, then they're in. And then it's like they're never going to leave. It's like an infestation. And there's always one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. And then when I get involved in these cases, my first thing is go to the court order. Here are the things you had to do. Boom, 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 boom. We're done. What are we still doing here? Well, we found these. Well, that's not here. What are you talking about? Where's that come from? Do you have a court order to force them to do that? We want them to do that. Well, I want you to go away. Are you going away? No, we're not going away without a court order. I go, look at that. We're on the same page. But it is a bit overwhelming. And the solicitors are the same way because when I sit down and they're like, all right, we're going for dependency. What are we going to do? I'm like, ready for a hearing. Like, hearing? Go, yep. Oh, Well, I don't have witnesses here. I'm like, well, guess that makes the judge's job easy. I don't think you have any evidence then, right? Like, I'm gonna need to it makes my job easy. I'm paid already, so I'm happy. I don't have to do any work. And the judge is like, you have any evidence? No, I guess that means you didn't meet your burden. Everybody goes home. And it's a very tough situation to be in. And I find that my straightforward, aggressive attitude about everything plays well in these situations, especially to people that, don't see it all the time. As Mike said, in the criminal defense world, you come at a prosecutor like that, they're like, yep, I got 5 more of you waiting in the wings. You're all doing the same thing. So it's not as off-putting, right? It's not as off-putting. For them, they're like, wait, what? I got to work? Yes. Objection, hearsay. They're like, what? Objection? Did you do this for a living? Like, okay.
Nobody else is fighting them, I guess.
He's like, I had an attorney go, well, why is it sustained? And I'm like, your witness can't testify to what somebody else told them. He's like, but it's another caseworker. And the judge goes, I don't care if it was Jesus himself. You can't say you have to get Jesus on the stand. You can't do that. Like, what is this, your first? It was funny. And that was a Berks County case. And the judge at the end was like, they're not even close. You're gone. Because you have to, getting them involved is a situation that can sometimes last years. And they once they're in, and it's trouble to get them out.
So let's talk a little bit about when they, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good, Mike. Sorry, I was done.
So I was just going to say, when they first show up during that initial investigation, you briefly mentioned you're going to want an attorney, but X, Y, and Z. I think it's important to stress how crucial it is to have not only an attorney, but an attorney who's willing to fight and knows what they're doing in those situations, because hopefully that's the first time the client is ever dealing with that situation. Hopefully you don't get like a punch card for CYS or something like that.
Yeah, that's usually a problem. That's usually a problem.
But they're not going to know, because you said that it's really nuanced, the way you want to respond under those circumstances. And you would only know that because you've done tons and tons of these things.
Correct.
And you know all the different possibilities. And somebody who's just, first of all, being caught off guard, likely, I don't think
they'll show up at your house and knock on the door.
Yeah, and I don't think people are sitting around waiting for them to show up, right? So you're caught off guard. You've never done this in your entire life. I mean, you're going to want counsel there, aren't you?
Absolutely. And if you're caught off guard with CYS, I think the important thing to do is, as I say with police, don't be rude, be cordial. Okay. They're going to ask, they have to see the child who's the subject of the investigation. You certainly can refuse that. I have never advised my client ever to refuse that. You can walk them out on the porch. You don't have to let them in the house. Here's the child, safe, sound, you're good to go. I'm calling an attorney. Leave me your business card. I'll have my attorney reach out to you tomorrow or later today. And the first thing you need to do is hire an attorney like myself to represent you. And my first thing is to call the caseworker and go, what's going on? Well, we're investigating. I know you showed up at my client's house. What are you investigating? What are the allegations? What did you hear? Now you can never find out who you heard it from, because a person who makes a child abuse, either general or a child abuse, is protected by statute. But you're allowed to know the details of the allegation, right? So you can't say, Jimmy's teacher, second grade gym teacher told us, right? It'll be the allegation is the child's come to school for the last 3 days, smells terrible, doesn't seem to take a shower. Okay. What do you want? Right? What do you want? Well, I want to talk to the kid. You saw the kid's fine. Well, I want to talk to mom. Well, what do you want? And it's the same principle that I would go through in a criminal case. I want to get my goal is to get as much information prior to you agreeing to or talking to or making any statements whatsoever. Because you have to understand at that point, we and you are at a disadvantage. They know everything. You know nothing. They want you to talk without knowing what the situation is. And it could be we're coming to investigate this, but you say a bunch of stuff and all of a sudden like, oh, well, that's interesting. Let me investigate that as well.
Right. That's what I was thinking, because it's a lot like the criminal context where people talk themselves into trouble. That's your famous saying is I never had a client talk themselves out of trouble. I've had quite a few talk themselves into trouble. If CYS shows up and they haven't told you the basis of the allegations or anything, and you think it's about something else. And they're showing up to talk to you about the allegation is he hasn't taken a shower in a few days, and you go to somewhere else in your mind and you say, oh, listen, those bruises on the back of his leg, that's from when we went sledding last week. Well,
Right.
tell me
And all of a
more about
sudden,
those
yeah.
bruises, please. Let
Tell
me
me
take
more
a
about
look,
those
right?
bruises. Sledding. It hasn't. Last week, where were we sledding? It was 70 degrees last week. We had that, the middle of winter heat spell. Like, what are we doing? So, that's a situation. You're going to talk yourself right into trouble, right? And that's
Do
a
they hold
problem.
people
'Cause
to
talking is
unreasonable
never a good-
standards sometimes?
I'm sorry?
Do they hold people to unreasonable standards? Jeremy made a good comment over here. He says you can try to do the best you can for your kids. The government expects imperfect people to do everything perfectly, or the government gun points your way. Do you find that there are unreasonable expectations sometimes?
I do. I don't think they take, because there's parents obviously who struggle, substance abuse among them. And I think that their unrealistic expectation on how difficult that is hurts a lot of parents, right? Mental health struggles are the same thing. If parents has untreated mental health issues, sometimes since they were children, they go through it. Sometimes people have, learning disabilities and things like that. And those things would be held against you. I had a case recently where I got in a fight in the middle of court where I came into the case late, and one of the requests is they were concerned that my client didn't have the intellectual ability to be a parent, right? So one of the reasons they wanted to, she had to graduate high school. Made a big stink about it, not as much as I should have, because I'm a firm believer you should graduate high school. So I was like, I don't know if that's really appropriate. I don't know if you need to graduate high school. What do you say if she doesn't graduate? You're going to take her children away? That seems a bit ridiculous. I know tons of people that didn't graduate high school, make more money than I do, very successful family. I mean, I don't know if that's the be all and end all. But I was like, I understand the value of education. I've talked to my client about it. We're going to agree to that. And then the caseworker stood up. There's another thing that we would like to do here. And I said, and they said, okay. And they said, we want her to take an IQ test. I said, I'm sorry. What was that request? I said, I want to take an IQ test. I'm like, for what? To see her intellectual disability. I said, here's what we're going to do. She takes an IQ test. I will take an IQ test. All you caseworkers will take an IQ test. And I guarantee my IQ is better than all of you caseworkers. And none of you can tell any of my clients what to do ever again unless you have a higher IQ than me. Do you agree to that? And the judge goes, wait, what? I'm like, I will agree to have my client do that. That is my term. She's like, I don't think they're going to agree to it. I was like, then I guess there's no IQ test. I go, if you're going to try to embarrass my client here, I'm going to embarrass every single caseworker in the entire agency. We're not pulling that. I think graduating high school is a ridiculous requirement. I think it's an illegal requirement and inappropriate. However, my client's family is pushing her to graduate. I think she needs a little help to get a kick in the rear end. So I'm begrudgingly agreeing to this against my better judgment as a lawyer. But if I hear an IQ test again, we're going to have a problem. But it's stuff like that they throw in there. I'm like, who do these people think you are? Like, okay, fine. We could do that. We'll put everybody up to it. Let's see who's winning here. You think you're winning? Miss, what do you got? Cosmetology degree? What are you doing? Get out.
I'm going to fund the whole event, Rich, if they accept your challenge. As a matter of fact, I might start a video campaign calling them a bunch of chickens and calling them out if they don't take the IQ test. And they do the challenge.
Take the IQ test.
And when we get the results, we'll reveal them live on the air in front of an audience. And Rory Povich is going to show up and open up the envelope. What do you think?
You are not a caseworker. No.
Right. You are not the smartest one in the room.
Caseworker anymore. Yeah, it's issues like that drive me insane. And the issue that you run into, and you said it yourself, Mike, when you're with me at one of these hearings, is there's too much to go along, get along. You're like, yeah, that sounds good. And then it comes back, her IQ is what, 70? And you're like, well, you're too dumb to have a child. What do you mean? What does that even mean? Like, that drives me insane. I'm like, you're not going to do that, because the only reason they wanted to do that, and I'm a firm believer in this, they wanted to embarrass her. And I'm like, we're not having that. I'm like, and they go, well, I don't know if that was an appropriate comment. I'm like, well, don't have a ridiculous request. But if you guys are confident, I leave my option open. We can all take IQ tests. I'll pull one up. We'll go downstairs right now. You guys want to do that? You're just being ridiculous.
Shows you how ridiculous the system is. Crazy.
You know, and then the other thing that's important when it comes to having an attorney in these situations, right? And I think it's vitally important and something that I tell all of my clients. So one of the things that caseworkers will complain to judges about, especially if I get involved after a dependency has been granted, right, is the parents are difficult, they ask too many questions, they come off like a jerk. So I say to my clients, and this is why it's vitally important for you to have an attorney who's aggressive and comes at people, is this: let me be the jerk, right? I want you to be polite, please, thank you, all of that. So when it comes down to it, we go to court, they're being difficult. And the judge goes, well, who's being difficult? Well, their lawyer. And I look at the judge and go, true, that's a facts. I'm trying. Well, how are the parents? Well, they're really nice. They answer the phone. They're very polite. So the lawyer's being a jerk? Yes, Your Honor, I have been. He's like, well, that is Attorney Roberts. He's been here a few times. If he was nice to you guys, I'd be like, uh-oh, he's having a bad day. He's got a diagnosis. That's not going so well. So it not only allows me to represent you and make sure your rights are protected, but it saves you those soft things that they'll go into a judge's decision that you're just being difficult. Well, no, they're not. I'm being difficult, right? It's not my clients. My clients would love to do that, but I told them they're not allowed to. What do you want me to do? Sorry. You know, it's one of those things, right? And Mike says that when you go to talk to police, like, listen, I'd love to talk to you, Mr. Officer, about what happened, but my G would kill me if he found out I talked to you. So yell at him.
Right.
You know, and that's
my job. I'll wear it.
Right. It's my job. What do you want me to do? I'm an attorney. No, we're not doing that. I mean, and it helps because you need someone, especially with a COS investigation, is someone who's aggressive and forceful and will tell people no and not end up being scared of them. Because the threat, I will take your child. Yes, if you don't do this, I will take the child from your client's house. Really? How are you going to do that? Well, we're going to go to court. You can't just walk in the front door. That's not how it works. We're going to go to court? Yeah, we'll go to court. You know what? I'll have to take this to court. I'm like, you do realize what I do for a living, right? Realize that I literally get paid decently well to do that every single day, right? You see the briefcase? You see the suit? Right? You know, I get paid pretty well to do this. Why do you think you saying we'll go to court is scary in any way to me? Why do you think I'm scared about that? Like, we'll go to court. Do you have a judge? We can go to court right now. Like let's go. Like right down there.
How not to intimidate a good lawyer.
Right. But yeah, and that's the problem. And that's another reason.
I'll take you to court, sir.
I'll take you to court.
You know what that means?
It reminds me of sometimes when you see professional fighters and they're talking trash to each other, and one of them is like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you a beating," and the other guy is like, "We're gonna fight in a cage in a few days. Remember, like that's what we do for a living."
Right. Well, I'm not here to fight, man. I don't want to get beat up. What are you talking about? I'm out.
We got a great comment here. Brian Harper says, "Rich, what do you see when you look at this ink blot? Rich, an idiot." Let me ask you this. It could surely the caseworker who wanted to do the IQ test was not the same caseworker who said the person couldn't call their child an idiot, right?
No, that was not the same person. It was two different counties, as a matter of fact.
That actually brings me to an interesting point, though. Do you see a variation from county to county?
No, unfortunately not. I think the same issues arise between caseworkers no matter where the county is. And I will tell you, in several cases, after the caseworkers got to know me, I've had better relationships as cases gotten on, because they're like, well, we started off on the wrong foot. I'm like, well, you were being ridiculous. Now I think you're being reasonable. It's pretty simple, you know? And I think it's like a Pavlov's dog kind of thing. You kind of got to like beat them. And then they're like, no, you're not getting away with that. I'm not that attorney. I know you're used to dealing with those two who are in that room who just let you do whatever you want. You better come with a good reason. I want to do this because does not work with me. It doesn't. It never will.
I'm thinking in my head, though, of counties. You know what they say about Pennsylvania with the T and the who was it that originally said? Rich would know this because he's a political buff. Who originally said about?
Oh, you mean Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, in between's Alabama?
Is that Carville? Who said that?
That's James Carville, man. Love James Carville. I do.
Right. So with that dramatic difference between cultures, ideologies, political views, things of that nature in different parts of Pennsylvania, you would think that you might get varying recommendations or expectations, where it would be difficult for a family to predict what am I supposed to do in order to not have them on my back. For example, you'd think that maybe if they are coming out there and saying that if you don't do it this way, then you're doing it wrong. Well, their way might be different in Perry County than it is in Philadelphia. Do you ever see that where there's a certain situation, a circumstance, and one county thinks one way is the right way, another county thinks the other way is the right way? Neither one of them are necessarily correct. You might have families in each that are just doing the opposite of what that particular county thinks is the way to go.
Yes, certain expectations in certain counties are absolutely different depending on where you go. And you got to approach those situations differently. But again, I think universally the thought process is you got to do it my way or you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, and it's totally subjective, so it's not really predictable.
It's definitely subjective because you'll have different caseworkers on different cases want different things. Same kind of situation. And, those caseworkers are brought up, and I don't know if it's their training or not because I'm not involved in that, is like, you got to get these parents to do what you need them to do. And that's not the way this works. And I'm not going to let you do that. Those are my clients. That's the family that I represent. My job is to keep that family together. That's what I'm here for. And I'm going to do whatever I can to keep you out of the middle of it. Right? I'm going to keep you out of the middle of it because that is my job. And my job is to protect them from you. And they're like, we're there to help them. You think you're there to help them. And maybe you are, but I will make a judge of that. And you're going to have to earn it. Right? Because I'm not letting you just say, I'm here to help you. I'm sure you believe that in your heart of hearts, but I don't believe you. I don't trust anybody. That's why I'm such as good at my job as a defense attorney. I don't believe a word anybody says to me, ever. So, I'm suspicious of everything. And I'm certainly suspicious of you because as soon as you come in and tell my clients how to raise their kids and you have no idea who these people are, I have a serious problem with what you're doing just from the jump.
Rich, at this point in your career, you're the MVP of the CYS cases. You get calls from Philadelphia all the way out to Erie to deal with this stuff. But how is it that you first started getting involved in CYS cases? You and I started our career at the same firm many, many moons ago. And I understand you were not doing CYS cases over there when you first started because we were doing the same thing essentially. Slightly different, me doing gun cases, you doing DUI / other. But how did you get involved with CYS cases?
Right. When we're at that same firm, I had slight involvement with it. Usually if there's a child abuse allegation, CYS, I'd handle it kind of tandem. I really got involved with it after I went to the firm before Mike, you and I joined up. I had a couple of pretty serious cases. One that comes to mind that was very serious situation where my client's child had a difficult situation. She was taken to the hospital, and my client and her husband questioned some of the decisions the doctors were making, asked appropriate questions about why they were doing things, should they be doing things. Eventually, the doctors had to come in and said my clients were being disruptive, they were being difficult, they were not letting the doctors care for the child in the way they wanted to. And I also believe in that particular case, the particular views of that family rubbed the doctors the wrong way. They called CYS. CYS became involved. The children, they tried to move the child. The children were declared dependent. And it really showed me at that point that I could be very helpful. I think I was helpful in that case. It got drug out. It was a really knockdown and drag out fight. We got the children and the family put back together eventually, but it was the first instance where I had, I get it. They're asking some question that you can't ask questions to the doctor. I go, well, why can't you ask questions to the doctor? Because they're doctors. I'm like, well, I'm a doctor. People ask questions to me all the time. I don't understand what that means. Like, why can't you ask questions? The child was very sick, needed serious medical attention, but the parents want to know, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How's it going to help? Is there any alternatives? They had certain views that that maybe even I don't particularly respond to, but it's their right to have those views to help them the right way, whether it be religious. In this case, they were quite religious. Honest here is the policy. It's not my thing, but okay. And they have a right to do that. And it wasn't being disruptive. If asking questions, medical questions about decisions to be made for your daughter who's having a serious medical episode is a problem, we've lost at that point, right?
Well,
no point did they say, no, you're not allowed to do this life-saving surgery for my daughter. They just said, well, I think recovery probably, I heard about this. What can you tell me about this? Well, that doesn't matter. Well, I read about it. Not saying you had to do this, because my clients never said, I'm the doctor. You're going to do this, not this. I have more education than you. I read about this. Can we try this? No. And then, and it was a huge knockdown and drag out fight, and it was a problem. And an interesting story from that litigation is I'm dealing with the solicitor from the agency, frown out issues, so, Mike understands litigation is like a chess match, right? I'm always doing things to maneuver and give my case the best chance to succeed. So before a certain hearing, I go out in front of the solicitor. I put out the final piece, move to queen, put you in check, so to speak, if you like to play chess. He goes, so wait a minute. I think everything you've done this week was to give yourself an advantage in litigation. I looked around. I went, well, yeah. What? I'm a lawyer. I'm trying. Yes. What do you mean? Yes, that's exactly what I did. Yes, true statement. He was like, that's that. I don't know if that's appropriate. I'm like, what? What? I'm like, where do you people go to law school? I don't know what this is. Like, I know I want to set myself up to lose. No. Yes, everything I did, everything I got you to agree to was to give me an advantage into what I was about to bring up. You should have seen. If you're a better lawyer, your idea is to see what you're going to do and counter it before I get there. But
right.
It's just it's a huge problem in the area. Just the attitude that a lot of them have that I'm right, you're wrong. The reason I'm here is because you're a terrible mother, you're a terrible father, and I need to tell you how to raise your kids. And I have just a serious, legitimate issue with that. And
don't you think you're a bad parent if you're not asking those questions, though? If you're in a situation where your kid's got a serious medical emergency, and you want that kid to get better, that wouldn't necessarily mean that you would be asking questions to try to make sure you're doing everything you can to get this kid in the right spot, isn't it? That just seems like common sense to me.
Well, nowadays they want parents just to do whatever the teachers say and, whatever the doctors on TV say. And, it's completely the opposite of what it's.
I hate to say it, but they can be wrong. Mm-hmm. They can be wrong.
They can be wrong.
We've experienced this in our own lives, not necessarily with children, but I've got a family member who had a rare injury, and we ended up at doctors all over the country over a period of about a year. Probably saw 15 to 20 doctors in Philadelphia, very intelligent individuals, all of whom said they could not find anything wrong. And guess what? They were wrong. Many of them were wrong. Believe it or not, they are not correct 100% of the time. Sorry.
I think I made that argument in that particular case. I'm like, I have a bunch of colleagues who make a lot of money dealing with when doctors are wrong. It's called medical malpractice. That's literally an industry. Like you're like, yo, man, and those aren't you just wrong. You were so wrong. You injured somebody sometimes very seriously. It's not like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. Actually, I got a kink that you missed back here. It's so wrong that they caused a serious injury. So don't come to me that my client, a mother or father, is not allowed to question a doctor. I'm sorry. You're absolutely. And any doctor says, you're not going to question me, I'm going to a different doctor. I'm not dealing with you.
Yeah, and to your point, Mike, you're really not being a good parent or an advocate for your children if you're not asking those questions. That's what's crazy to me, the way things are these days, how you're just not supposed to question authority. That's just insane to me.
So this is an interesting one. Jeremy brought up that sometimes at school there are counselors who try to put kids on drugs. If a parent doesn't want the kid to be taking certain medications, whether it be different kinds of mental health medications or anything like that, could that potentially pose a problem in these situations?
It could. It certainly could. It could, where you're not following a doctor's recommendation and that they believe that the child is not getting the help that he or she needs. Absolutely.
Well, you've worked these cases with me in the past with the mental health, and you worked them separately on your own with 303 hearings for many years. And we've dealt with clients who were put on mental health medications that made them significantly worse.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, when the medication gets straightened out, or even if they get off of it safely, they're in a much better position. So that stuff could significantly impact somebody's quality of life, and have detrimental side effects. And you're seeing CYS cases where they're saying either take it or else.
Take it or else. And then don't want a suggestion where, well, let's try some other things, right? And I certainly believe that, and I've known friends of mine who has children who need to be medicated, and you could just see it. But I think you're too quick to put a pill, like, 5-year-old's hyper. And I go, well, it's 5. Like that. I know what the problem is. Like 6-year-old won't sit still. Well, this is a 6-year-old. I don't understand. What do you mean won't sit still? Now, if you're a 66-year-old and won't sit still, now we got a problem. Like, sit there and move. What are you doing?
Right.
But
yeah.
I mean, and I think it's important for parents to ask a bunch of questions and always explore alternatives. Do we need medication? Do they need to run? What is the issue? I mean, medication is appropriate, absolutely, in many circumstances. But I am not one to push for medication off the bat, and I think it's an easy solution for a lot of professionals and maybe even some parents in those situations. Just, give my kid a pill. I'm like, well, you don't have to do that. And maybe you should let the kid just be a kid for 5 minutes.
So just to go back, you got into CYS because you had tangential involvement with your criminal cases. Is that correct?
Yep. And then a really serious case at the firm that I was at before that. And then at that point, was a very serious case, had a couple of them. And that client advocated that I think you could do this and help out a lot more people. And so I was like, yeah, give it a shot. And well, here I am years later advocating for parents like crazy. So, one of these days I'll remind that client that he or she may be right. But I mean, it's just, for me, you help somebody out in a criminal case, but helping parent or parents keep their family together, it's something I advocate for, an independence of the family and the ability for those parents to make decisions about their child's upbringing, is important to me, whether I agree with their decision or not. Right. Because there's certainly decisions my clients have made. I go, yeah, I think it's a really terrible idea, but it's the decision that they made for their child. So it doesn't put them in danger. They're not going to die. They're not sick. They're not going to kill them. I go, all right. Again, as my old adage goes, I would have done that. I think it's a bad idea, but what they're doing isn't wrong. And I firmly believe in a parent's right to do that. And that's what I fight for.
That must have been an incredible challenge for you in making that transition initially, early on in the crossover, because these CYS cases, they're done behind closed doors. They're extremely private. It's not like a criminal case where, we've sat through how many trials, how many preliminary hearings and everything like that before you get up there in your first chair on your own, because you can't just sit around in the courthouse all day and watch these things, see other cases go on. And so you're going into this without having a ton of exposure. Now, at the same time, you had a significant advantage going in that you had this skill set and you had these tools that your opposition frankly did not have. So what was that like, making that transition and coming in at the very beginning? Was it a lot of reading rules? And sometimes that's an advantage, right? Because people have always done something a certain way and maybe never bothered to look at the rules in a long time. And you're sitting there and you're starting out, you're reading the rules and say, hey, they're actually doing this wrong. But how was that?
I mean, it was a lot of that. It's a lot of, to use the phrase, a bench book to give me the broad overview of what I'm looking at. Rules especially, because I want to know, if you think about being in litigation, it's a game. right? If you want to think of it, it's a game, right? And there's certain rules. Here are the rules, right? Are the rules of evidence? What are the rules? What is the burden of proof? Are they allowed to do this? Are they allowed to do that? Just, reading the Adoption Act, a determination case I win, it says you specifically have to do X, Y, and Z. Look at a petition. You didn't do that. Here it is. So you have to bring things like that up, and finding those issues is something I think that people have done it a certain way. They overlook all of that, jump right to the merits of the decision. And it is nerve-wracking, but I mean, it's just walking in with confidence is something that, Mike, you and I, cases that we're not familiar with, you have to walk in thinking that you're doing the right thing, and that I know in the back of my head, I know the law, I've read it enough, and I'm good at what I do. And, I think I'm right. And that's some of the times the best idea. I think I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm going to prove somebody is completely wrong. And that's what I go to do. And, you struggle a little bit, and I'm sure I've made mistakes in certain instances, but at the same point, it's just having that confidence, especially reading the rules and knowing the law better than the person who's sitting across from you, who's done it for 15 years, because they never really bothered to look at what the rule says. And right. Some of the judges are like, that's not true. I go, no, 1543, whatever the statute, A1 says, da-da-da-da. And they go, you see them turn around, as Mike knows, grab their big book from behind them on the bench, read it, and go, oh, yeah, Attorney Roberts is right. Yeah, you can't do that. I go, okay. And then, you can't do that. And it messes them up. He's like, oh, yeah, it says that. I'm like, Judge, did you think I was making that up out of thin air? Like I didn't have it. I'm reading the same thing you are right here. It might be on an iPad, but I'm reading the same thing. So, I mean, it is a nerve-wracking experience because, well, we all of us lawyers have had big cases and people are depending on us. But, I mean, in these situations, I've worked through it. It was a good transition, and I've loved every minute of it. So I'm not going to stop doing it.
Let me ask you this, on a personal level, as a parent, when you see this kind of thing happening to other parents and you see how you see the level of overreach that you've seen, does that just hit differently? Because like you were saying, there are a lot of these caseworkers, these therapists, they're not parents themselves. So there's a separation there, right? There's a disconnect. And perhaps that makes their job easier under these circumstances because they can't see themselves in those situations. How does that feel as somebody who is a parent?
Well, I think it frustrates me because experience is the best teacher, right? I can read a book a million times about how a trial is supposed to go and when I'm supposed to object and how I'm supposed to sit. But experience is what teaches you how to be a good trial attorney, right? Experience is what teaches you how to be a good parent, having good role models and good parents yourself, and taking the good and the bad from it. And I mean, it's frustrating because they say, well, this is how it's supposed to work. And I go, ma'am, that's not how it works in real life. And if we got 10 people in here with 10, 14-year-olds, they're all going to look at you like you got 15 heads. That's insane. Because I'm sure that it should work this way in a perfect world, but it's not. And this is real life, and these are kids. And, as I think the old expression goes, kids are feral, right? And it's your job as a parent to make sure they're not feral and to raise them and to mold them and teach them right from wrong. You don't know that out of the gate, so to speak, or out of the womb. So, I mean, having somebody come in, and especially someone comes in who doesn't have kids and tells you how to do something, even though they're not telling me how to do something, it's a visceral reaction that I have.
When we often talk to gun owners, you and I go out, we do the seminars, and even a lot of people who tune into the radio program, they're doing so because they want to know how they can avoid being in these situations in the first place, right? Nobody wants to be in that situation where CYS shows up, I'd imagine, along those same lines. Is there anything that parents can do to prevent these situations from happening in the first place? Now, I will say this, from my honest perspective is that the answer may be to a certain degree no, because if asking questions to a physician about your child's medical care in a very serious situation is going to make that happen, then I don't know how you avoid that. You don't want to avoid that, right? I think at that point, a good parent would say, I don't care what you do to me, this is what I'm going to do. But is there anything, maybe that's an example that wouldn't relate to this, but is there anything that parents can do to try to avoid these situations?
I mean, avoiding it is a tough situation because there's always eyes on you everywhere you go, and things that you do could be misinterpreted. But I always go with the thing: you got to be polite, you got to be cordial. I'm not, rude or a jerk, except to CYS workers. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of rude and a jerk to them. But as a general rule, I think you just got to be who you are, and then confidence. I mean, and be in a situation if these things happen that you have the ability to get an attorney and hire somebody and get somebody to protect you. I mean, I'm not going to say how do I avoid it. I mean, it's tough because you don't know what's going to trigger somebody.
Right.
You send them off
And
to school.
in your estimation, the clients that you're defending, they haven't done anything wrong most of the time, right?
Right.
So,
most of them haven't. They go to school.
So what are you going to
kids
do
says
to avoid
misinterpreted, and then all of a sudden you have 3 people knocking at the door? So you tell the doctor, I don't know if that's the best idea, can we try something else? They go, are you questioning me? I'm like, well, I want to see if there's another option. That's it, we're getting COS involved. Wait, what? But I mean, the thing I try to have confidence is that the judges that I'm in front of and that I've been in front of start to see the light. The day that I did oral argument for that termination case, there was a case that was argued right before mine in a situation where parents questioned doctors. COAS filed for dependency. The trial court said, get out. No, the children aren't dependent. COAS actually appeals it. And all 3 judges on that panel just hammered the agency about how in the world can you say that a parent is not allowed to question medical advice for their children? How does that possibly? Did they refuse the medical treatment? They said no. They just asked questions about different options. And the judge, you could see, looked at her with just disdain, like, how is that possibly a problem? Is a parent not allowed to ask questions about their own child? Well, it could have delayed care and he could have got 6. Well, yeah. Well, did he? No, they got treatment that he needed. Okay. So what's the problem? So I don't know. Maybe my belief is I keep fighting my little good fight over here, and eventually they learn to leave people alone and let them raise their own kids unless there's a serious problem. So as for advice on how to avoid these situations, I'm kind of devoid of that. I apologize.
And just say your prayers, right?
Yeah.
Has social media ever come into play in any of these cases, or is CYS getting tips by way of scouring the social media and seeing something they don't like and coming into somebody's home?
I haven't seen that in any of the cases that I've handled. I'm positive they probably look at somebody's social media page.
So it's probably a good idea to keep that clean then, right? And make sure your kids aren't doing stupid things on social media.
Doing stupid things? Yeah. I mean, you can get an issue where teenagers share inappropriate pictures. That can get CYS involved. Those usually cases don't go very far, but those are always trouble. You need to talk to your kids about using social media. Sure.
All right. The website is richardrobertsglaw.com, right? richardrobertsglaw.com. We're seeing advice in the comments. Make sure you lawyer up ahead of time and at least know about CYS, know about the process. I'm certain this is very helpful for a lot of our listeners. Chris, do you have any additional questions for Rich? He's been very generous with our time this evening. I know you had a criminal case this morning at 8 a.m. or something in Lehigh County, right, Rich?
I did have that. That was a suppression hearing that I'm very curious. It went a lot longer than I thought. The judge in that case was very interested, and I think it went really well. We got briefs due, and the judge wants us to come back in June for oral arguments. So, yeah, I hope to have a good result in there. Mike helped out tremendously. I think we were on the phone late last night, make sure I had my argument straight. So, and I'm sure Mike will now, because I'm putting him on the spot, will volunteer to help me write a bang up brief in that case so we can win.
Oh, I already got it in my head, so don't worry.
No, we're excited. It's a really good issue, and there's
and then you'll be bringing us the news of your next big appellate victory, right?
Well, yeah. After I went to the trial court, and then the Commonwealth is forced to appeal, and we beat him there. Then Mike, both you and I can come talk about it. But yeah, it was. Yeah. What was it? It was a suppression issue. So it's individual. Well, my client, they believe 911 call. He's outside with a couple of friends. The 911 caller sees him on his Ring camera. They're standing there, and it's late at night. It's a high crime area. I put that in air finger quotes because cops think everywhere is a high crime area. But anyway, so it's high crime area. Car drives by. Client said, or the caller says to 911, he pulls what looks like a firearm out of his waistband, and then puts it away as the car drives by. So 911 dispatcher says, "Did he fired?" He's like, "No shooting. I just wanted to give you an FYI." He's like, 911 dispatcher asked him, "Did he point it at the car?" He said, "No, he kind of picked his hoodie up and then kind of hit it. He didn't really do anything. I just thought the behavior was kind of weird." So goes through a couple of things. Guy, name, all this. He redacts, there's name, address, phone number, blah, 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 blah. So they dispatch a bunch of police. He said, "I'm dispatching police to your location right now. They'll be there shortly." 911 caller says, "I don't know if that's really necessary. He wasn't really doing anything wrong. I just wanted to make you aware of it." 911 dispatcher says, "There's no reason to be pulling out a gun in the middle of the street." Okay. So that's the 911 call, hangs up. Now, I listened to it. Mike had listened to it well. I don't think there's anything wrong. There's a recent case, Commonwealth v. Hicks, Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Possession of a handgun in and of itself is not reasonable suspicion to stop anybody, right? It's not criminal activity, right? To have a possession of a concealed weapon in Pennsylvania. You're allowed to do that, presuming you have a license. And you can't tell by somebody's looking at them whether or not they have a license. So it's not criminal activity anymore. So dispatch gets on the horn, and the dispatcher says, Fountain and Liberty, which is the location of the thing. 3 guys outside. One of them has a gun. Car drove by, points the gun at the car as it drives by. Now, we stop for that moment and go, Mike, if a guy points a gun at a car, is that reasonable suspicion to stop somebody? Absolutely, yes. You cannot go around pointing guns at a car. I might have a couple clients who disagree with that proposition, but they're wrong. I'm right on that one. And You cannot just point a gun at the car. That's a crime. So police show up, stop the guy, and then they find a gun. There's some other issues, but it's not really important. So the main issue that we have to determine is the prosecutor argues reasonable suspicion is what information does the officer possess at the time he stopped. Now, officer does not hear the 911 call. All he hears is the dispatcher saying, 3 guys on this corner, one of them has a gun, describes what the guy's wearing, pointed it at a passing car. 25,000 officers show up, get my guy, right? The problem is this. My argument is there's no reasonable suspicion, right? Because the dispatcher cannot enhance the 911 call. It's the value of the 911 call that's important. The 911 call doesn't establish reasonable suspicion. Because if you allow the Commonwealth or the government to take an innocuous 911 call, add a couple of facts to it to give the police reasonable suspicion to stop you, you have no Fourth Amendment protection whatsoever. You don't have any. Right now, if the same scenario is, and the judge asked this morning, if the person who called said, guy in this description pointed a gun at a car, and it turned out cops get his video, that's not what happened. Is there reasonable suspicion? The answer is yes, right?
Yes.
It's a named tipster who put his, now you can certainly charge him with making a false police report, but that doesn't eviscerate the reasonable suspicion because the information the police had from an independent third party is this guy pointed a gun in the car, right? I saw it. Here's my name. Here's my address. But that doesn't apply because at this point, it's the police officer or dispatcher themselves amplifying the call. Again, you can't do that. It's what person gets the information has to accurate relay the information. So, the issue that you have is a lot of the cases when you challenge it in a similar way is what was the tip? I have yet to find a case, and I'm sure Mike and I will search high and low, where the tip doesn't present reasonable suspicion. The dispatcher creates reasonable suspicion. Is it enough? So it could be a case of first impression because that's a big issue in my opinion. If they're allowed to do that, then you run carte blanche for anybody to say.
Oh, yeah. In my mind, it's very, very clear that the dispatcher is a part of the Commonwealth, right? And the Constitution protect us from whom? The government.
Right.
And if the government's allowed to, by way of their own error, whether it's by accident or design, reap a benefit, then it eviscerates the constitutional protection.
Yeah, I agree. And I believe that sentence will probably make it in that brief. I can probably guarantee that, because
There
that's
we go.
literally what it is. It's like, okay, so guy calls me and says, guy on the corner has a gun, which they know isn't enough to stop him based on Pennsylvania Supreme Court case law. So the dispatcher goes, or if it's a local police department, you called into your local township, goes, hey, Bob Smith at 123 Main Street called in and said the guy had a gun. He was pointing it at people. What do you do? Like, now I can't challenge it. Wait a minute. So they can just fall their way into it? Yeah.
Right.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
For me.
Or you could take any scenario anywhere that you could possibly imagine and then just add at the end, and he's got a bomb. Right? There's a dude with long hair standing outside my house on the public street, and he's got a bomb. You just add, and he's got a bomb to literally everything. And when it turns out he doesn't have a bomb, it's like, oh, well, it turns out he doesn't have a bomb. But, you can't use that against the Commonwealth. And dispatcher said it. Cop had to rely on it. That's right. That. So we'll get into all of that. Hopefully the judge will come out on the right side on this one.
I hope so too. He was the judge asked a lot of really good questions in this particular case, was really hammering home, where the client was, where the cops were, what was happening, what was said. And because the Commonwealth objected to my introduction of the 911 call, that it wasn't relevant. And I'm sitting there, the judge is like, well, wait a minute. What if the 911, he's like, I haven't heard the 911 call, but what if the 911 call doesn't say what the dispatcher says it said? And I went, there it is. That's what I wanted you to say, because it's not going to say what you just heard. That's why I'm going to play it. He's like, objection overruled. I want to hear this. And then we made the same kind of, I don't know if that's a proper objection. She can argue it doesn't matter, but and he goes, and he looked at her and goes, I don't know about this, but I'll let you guys brief it. And I want to hear briefs. How long do you need? And I want you guys back here to argue this one. And I've been in front of this judge numerous times. I've never heard that. So I don't know. It's at least a good sign that he's interested in it. And he certainly
didn't get the one line order denied like the other case. Right?
Denied.
Yeah, sorry, denied.
So,
well,
so Richard, I mean, I didn't get the one line order denied. It's like, I want to hear.
Go to richardrobertsglaw.com for all your CYS deeds. It's good to have that in your wallet. We'll send you business cards if you need them. And Rich, thank you so much for joining us to give us this update. And we can't let it go this long any longer. Maybe we can make a regular thing out of it. Once a month, you're scheduled to be on the show. How does that sound?
We could do that. I'm always
Heck
good with that.
Yeah. Once a month, even if we do it every single month, it's only 12 times a year. You can.
That's right.
You can commit to that, can't you, Rich?
You're putting me on a spot, my friend. I don't know if I like this.
I drive a hard bargain.
You do sometimes. I've heard you with DAs, and I go, yeah, that's not me. But go ahead, Mike. You do you, buddy.
Well, wait, going the other way.
Well, no, it's really good. Mike's like, Mike sometimes gets to the point where he's like, I'm just gonna badger them until they give me what I want. I'm just not gonna go away. And it works. I'm okay with it.
He's like CYS.
The client goes, you guys are really good. Mike's like, no, I just badger him until he's like, if I give you this, will you shut up and go away? And he goes, yes, you got it. And he goes, is the client upset? I'm like, no, the client got exactly what they wanted. They're extremely happy. They don't care if it's by brilliant legal minds or just being annoying. They don't care.
I remember, Rich, I showed up to this one hearing. It was in Delco, and it was like the first time ever that the judge gets out there on time. And I showed up maybe 5 minutes after 9, and hearing was scheduled for 9. Usually you're sitting there till 11. And so I show up at like 5 after 9 into the courtroom. Rich is sitting there. So what's going on? And he said, spoke to the DA, spoke to the cop, told us to go take a hike, I guess is the best. I'm trying to think of how to say it in a radio friendly way.
Correct.
Told us to go blank ourselves. And it's like, what? And he said, yep. I said, our guy was a real jerk to them, not willing to do anything, got to be hearing. I said, all right. So I sit down. and start to get my stuff together. I'm sitting there watching the next thing go on, and something just snapped in my head. I stood up and was like, F this, we're working this out.
I was all fired up and ready to go.
So I grabbed the cop, I brought him in the back. We started talking, and we were talking for like 5 or 10 minutes. And at first he was just like, nope, not doing anything. We kept talking, and I got him to a place where we were almost all right. So I went back to the client. I told him, hey, here's what I think we need to do. And the client gave me a little bit of pushback at first. It wanted to continue to be a jerk to the cops. I was like, listen, do you want to go to jail or not? I mean, come on. You want to make this go away? We can make this go away. It's not going to be that way. And so finally he agrees to follow along with Rich and I's advice. And then so I walked over to the cop, a couple more seconds. He was like, I don't know. I got to think about it, because Rich and I were like, this is what we need to have. This is what's going to get it done. We go back into the courtroom. We're sitting down waiting for our case to get called. Case gets called. Still didn't know if it was worked out. Cop turns over, like taps Rich on the shoulder. Is like, we can do it that way. And Rich was joking afterwards. He said, did the cop think he was in a movie or something like that? Like, is this for real?
Awesome.
We got it worked out, though.
I've never forgiven Mike for doing that, because I wanted to go to that hearing so bad. We left the courthouse. The client's happy. Mike's like, I got it worked out. I was like, I hate your face, Mike. I really we're ready to go. We got what we wanted. I was like, yeah, I want to get it my way.
Truth is, Rich didn't like the client and wanted to get dragged away in handcuffs.
I do remember that client. I was like, ooh, this guy.
All right, Rich. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next month, right?
Maybe, Mike. Maybe.
Monthly thing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Roberts.
Woo!
Thanks.
Hey now.
Thanks, Rich.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. As the episode is coming to a close, I understand we do have some breaking news with a very special guest, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us on the program today, we've got Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen joining us. He's been at the head of the headlines as of late, and he's been all over the news. As we understand, he's going to be a witness in a very important case. Mr. Cohen, are you there?
Yes, Michael. How are you?
Oh, I've been okay. We've had a good program so far. I'm glad we could finally get you on to the program. And, Mr. Cohen, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to?
Oh, well, it's very nice. Michael meets Michael, okay? And let me tell you something. Just as Mr. Roberts was saying, smart people take advice, correct? Well, how many times have I told Trump to take some smart advice, and what has he done?
I don't know. What has he done? Is there more
Exactly.
to the
You want to hear the stormy details?
story? The stormy details. Mr. Cohen, you were a confidant of President Trump for years. You were his attorney. They called you the fixer. You'd help him out, streamline things. What happened? How did it all fall apart?
Absolutely. Listen, I can only say a couple of things because I have a meeting at the golf course pretty soon because I'm going to own his a golf course and his winery, and I actually have a date with Stormy tonight. So let's keep this kind of quick, if that's okay.
No, okay. We can keep it quick. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to? I know that you're going to be.
I'm going to be half owner of Trump Organization by the time I get through with him.
Well, why did it all fall apart though? You guys seem to have a good relationship. You know, you helped him out. You got things done, and now you guys both don't have very nice things to say about one another.
It's true, Michael. You guys are in the gun business, and I've given myself a new name called 21 Guns Michael. That's me. Because I've got enough ammunition to store him away for the rest of his life.
Really?
Yes.
That bad?
Yes.
Some of the things that you've come out and said, though, Mr. Cohen, they've just seemed awfully ridiculous, a little on the unbelievable side. And some people are saying that you don't exactly have a track record for honesty. And now we're supposed to believe you in this next case. What do you have to say to people who tell you that?
I tell you something. Like I said, I have limited amount of time tonight to answer some of these questions. They're bombing me over here with news stations, and I'm a tired man. But all I could tell you is that Trump is crooked. Yeah, he's crooked.
Could you give us any examples of something about Trump that maybe the general public wouldn't know and that would surprise them? Because obviously you've got some kind of a basis for your ill will towards him. So what's something that people might not know about him?
He plays too much golf.
Oh, does he?
That's what he does. Plays too much golf.
And I'm not exactly a psychologist or anything, Mr. Cohen, but you were just saying that you were going to go out on the golf course. It seems to be something that you enjoy. I don't know how free you are to roam around with your current legal situation and all. Yeah.
I don't even like golf, to tell you the truth. I'm just going to play it because I know it'll aggravate him. Okay? I live my life now to aggravate Donald Trump. That's to sum it up. That's what I'm after.
Okay.
Trump.
Okay, this is all making sense. But why though? What's the motivation here? Well, what's so bad about him? What don't you like about him?
Well, my boy Biden and Harris, they like golf too as much as I do, and when we get this guy into the corner, he's not going to be able to breathe. We're going to be playing golf on his course. We're going to own his family.
Okay. Well, why though? What's the motivation here?
It's not funny, guys.
I know.
I'm telling you.
This is a very serious matter.
Very serious.
I'm going to have to get going soon, but because Stormy's coming in about 5 minutes. Uber's coming to pick her up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're having Chinese tonight.
All right. Well, if I could kick in a few bucks, I heard they froze your assets or something like that.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple of stashed away somewhere. So enough said.
Is Donald Trump suing you for $500 million?
Suing me?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Oh, you're very good at putting logs on the fire there, Mr. Giaramita.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
What are you, from Long Island?
I'm the guy, okay? I am the lawyer of all lawyers, okay?
Well, that might be a little bit debatable, but I'm not going to disrespect you or anything like that. Well, before Stormy gets there in the Uber and you guys eat your Chinese food, are you already sweating over there? You sweating over there a little bit?
I'm in Mar-a-Lago, for crying out loud.
It's hot down there this time of year, huh?
You guys want to know everything.
Trump invited you to Mar-a-Lago?
Well, that's what we're doing, though. It's an interview, right?
Trump's a nice guy. He invited you down there.
I agreed to a couple of minutes here, okay? It's getting hot and stormy in here, and it's about time.
Can't you just tell us, though, what is it that irritates you about Trump? What sparked all this?
His orange hair.
Oh, it's the hair.
The hair.
It's the hair. You do have good hair for a man your age. I will give you that, Mr. Cohen. You got a solid hairline.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Are there any tips you have for somebody who might want such a solid hairline?
Well, I've been using Just for Men lately.
It's doing the trick. Is it just for men, though? Is it just for men? Is it?
So I think so. It's the makers of Just for Democrats, I think.
Oh, okay. I'm not as familiar with that one. They might not have the same marketing team.
Oh, well, too bad for them.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Cohen. Oh, we really appreciate you joining us. Or any last words you want to say? Any secrets you want to divulge about Trump? Any dirt? We know you won't pass up on the opportunity to throw him under the bus, right?
He's already under the bus. Pretty soon he'll be under the grave. Oh, I just can't wait. I have the popcorn ready.
Well, what can we expect out of this trial? Are you going to testify?
Come on. I mean, I'm from Long Island. I'll do what I have to do.
And do you think that ultimately Trump is going to be convicted? Is he going to jail?
That man is going down with his family. I've represented him for years. He's a liar. He's a liar.
Mm. And for people who make those same accusations about yourself, pointing to, I don't know, contradictory things you said numerous occasions.
No, combination number 5. Egg roll, fried rice on that. Yes. No. Stormy likes the orange chicken. No. We don't want orange chicken. Order her the chicken broccoli. Okay. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Do you have somebody making the Chinese food call for you over there?
Yes, we do. And
Is that your parole officer?
You're a man of many hats, my friend. Listen, I have to get going to my Chinese food, but you guys take care of yourselves and watch what I watch when Trump goes down.
All right. Well, we thank you very much for your time, Mr. Cohen. We'll hopefully you can come back on the program again another time.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Take care of yourself.
Bye,
For
Mike.
those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL.
Quite the surprise there, Michael.
Yeah, it was an excellent surprise guest right there.
Making lawyers great again.
Yeah, very insightful. I always wanted to interview him. Maybe we could start a new segment where he comes on and joins us and gives us his legal analysis.
Yeah, that and Chinese recommendations.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah. Oh, we didn't get Rich's fashion recommendations.
Oh yeah, when he's on next month, in 4 weeks.
Yeah, we'll have to do his fashion recommendations.
We'll have to make that part of the segment.
Yeah. So, comments lighting up over here. We're getting some interesting questions, huh?
Hey now.
I'm gonna have to. I think of my own Michael Cohen in the comments, making some very nasty accusations about Mike G.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Chinese new segment. Chinese with Stormy.
Yeah, they went for the orange chicken. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good right about now.
Yeah, right. Favorite.
What's that, Liberty?
That's a Philly Chris favorite.
The orange chicken.
I don't know why. Garlic chicken.
Yeah, garlic. Give me some garlic.
All right, who's gonna rev up the rapid fire?
What do we got?
What do we got on rapid fire? First thing that I noticed today, there's a tweet that went out that smart gun just hit the market.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't see that.
It's unlocked with a fingerprint or facial recognition.
Interesting. Okay.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, right.
In a life or death situation, it's not like you might have some blood on your hand or something, any kind of liquid. You ever try to open up your phone after you get out of the shower? I'm serious.
Yeah, no.
Have you ever tried to put in your passcode
on
your phone after the shower?
Yep,
I don't know that it's the same technology or anything like that.
Yeah, or after the bathroom. Yeah, your hands are a little wet. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Impossible, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it's
Wait, what?
I think we both feel the same way about that kind of stuff.
Guys, it just clicked with me that the orange chicken was a reference to Donald Trump.
Yes, right.
They call him orange. Oh my gosh, that went over my head. Sorry.
Liberty with 2-week-old punchlines over here.
There we go. Yeah,
I had no clue. I just thought, that was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
2-week-old punchlines. Brian Harper says, all my guns are so stupid. Swipe to the left to fire your gun.
Keep it simple, man. Keep it simple.
Yeah, I could see a lot. There are definitely concerns.
How many people have been, unfortunately hurt or injured or killed because they, in a critical incident, forgot to turn their safety off. So that's one
Right,
of the nice
mechanical
things about,
safety, sure.
The Glocks are nice for that reason.
And one of the arguments that somebody made, they said, well, they were clapping back at somebody who said this was a bad idea. They said, oh yeah, it would be terrible if a criminal stole your gun and couldn't commit a crime with it afterwards. Well, I'm not a criminal, so I'm not going to be stealing
Right.
somebody else's gun and trying to use it afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's not really my problem what the criminals are going to try to do.
Right.
I want to be able to protect myself, not really thinking about it from that standpoint.
I guess make every car useless if it's not, if you're not the one driving it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have a rapid fire, but I know that there was that shooting in Kentucky that was, all over the news. I think they're finding out that there was something with mental health. And the second thing was Trump was all over the place doing interviews with Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson. Yeah.
What Snowflaking is going to do in response to the smart gun?
What's that?
He's going to opt against it because he sees too many problems with it. Instead, he's going to do it the old-fashioned way, which is to carry around your own safe with your gun inside the case.
There you go.
Actually, I heard he was creating this new thing called Smart Bees.
It's Smart Bees.
Smart
They're
Bees.
smart enough not to turn against their owner.
There you go.
Right.
So it can't backfire.
This thing isn't magnetized.
I was going to mention, I guess the only thing, as far as like rapid fire goes, Liberty mentioned, Trump doing the interviews. I did catch him on Tucker the other night. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he was talking quite a bit about the US dollar. Yeah. And I thought that was pretty interesting because he said
big
something.
Deal.
yeah. It's just, just the financial.
Did you see that Yellen said that the economy is doing it? The economy is obviously doing exceptionally well.
Oh yeah, of course, right. When has she been right about anything, really?
Obviously doing exceptionally well.
Yes,
obviously,
amazingly well. It's just awesome how
obviously
inexpensive
Gouge out
everything
your
is.
eyes and ignore everything else.
Yeah, it's nothing to see here.
I feel like somebody sent me a video about what the future would be like if the dollar collapses and like little by little. And I'm realizing.
I wonder if there are any people, because I know that we have people in the oil and gas industry who typically listen to the program. I wonder if anybody in the comments, if you're in the oil and gas industry, in the comments, what you think about the different countries are trading oil off of the dollar. Is that, did I understand that right, Chris?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really World War III. Like that, if you were looking, like I feel like in 50 years from now, if the history books are written accurately, they're gonna look back and say, the United States fell financially. Like the World War III has been going on now for several years, in my opinion. Started a while ago, and we're being infiltrated and dismantled essentially internally, financially. I don't see how we can come back from this. And at this point, if we're not a third world country in the next 10 years, if this stuff doesn't get immediately like turned around, I would be shocked because the dollar is going to just completely collapse at this point.
I think you're right about the whole dollar thing. I don't know. I have a weird feeling too. Like if tomorrow we wake up and we can't spend money anywhere.
Yeah, well, they're going to roll out this, the central bank digital currency. The CBDC is scheduled to come out in July, is my understanding, the new FedNow system. And already certain institutions, a lot of the national parks and other federal organizations are not taking cash anymore. So they're slowly and progressively working toward that full-on use of a controlled digital currency. And, if you look at the stuff that they've been planning for years and years now, it's really starting to happen. So it's pretty wild to watch. And unfortunately, most people are still in the dark about, the fact that our currency is a fiat currency. We've talked about it on the show for a long time now. I've been mentioning this stuff for a while, but and to hear Trump talk about it, the way he was the other day, to have a former president of the United States basically acknowledging that we're about to collapse is pretty wild to hear.
So
It's
and
too late though, right? Isn't it?
I think it's too late. Yeah, I do. I don't. I like to have a positive outlook, but not enough people are paying attention. Not enough people really understand this stuff.
Could you explain? Could you explain FedNow to us like we're 5?
Yeah, basically, my understanding of it is, they're going to turn on the central bank digital currency, and initially they're going to try to get people to jump on board. They're going to be like, "Hey, this is for you. This benefits you. It's more convenient. It's easy. You don't have to use your paper. Your dirty digital, your dirty paper and coins, and everything's going to be convenient. You'll have this new digital currency, sort of like a credit card, if you will, and it could be on your phone, or it'll be linked to, a unique identifier that will all get assigned. And, initially it'll be this thing you can opt into. It'll be exciting, like a new technology. And then it's going to ramp up to something that would become mandatory. And then you're going to be required to use that system. This is already happening. Like in Europe, they just announced that you can't spend over 10,000 pounds in cash. You can literally go to jail. There's they're issuing, legal consequences for using the paper money, the pound. So if people don't think that's going to happen here, the way things have been going the past few years, I really, I don't see any way around it at this point. And then, of course, you'll be able to look at everything you have. And what are you buying? What are you allowed to buy? We don't feel like you should really be buying guns. So when you go to make a transaction that's already been coded, my understanding is the credit card companies are already coding a lot of those transactions and, preparing for this. And let's say Russ, a producer, walks in the gun shop and they're like, "Hey, we heard you do that pizza diet, where you eat a pizza every day. And that's a little crazy. You don't seem, like you should own a gun," whatever their, ridiculous reasons are, they can
get you 302.
Yeah. So, it's really wild, and you have Donald Trump talking about it. If he doesn't get back in the White House, and even if he does get back in, the damages that have been done in the past few years, it's wild to see, in my opinion, how decimated we've been internally.
So
DG
Chris,
says I hear Philly Chris still think a new.
Oh yeah, is it crackling? I'm sorry, guys. I gotta get one of this.
well, Chris, I was
We
wondering.
hold on. We got a comment over here because I did ask. It says, fun fact: Russia is allegedly receiving $60 a barrel, but they have kept their production flat throughout the U.S. sanctions. They must be getting compensated somehow.
Well, I guess we can talk about that.
I'd have to look into that a little bit more, but that's interesting. Yeah.
Russ, what were you saying?
I was wondering, Chris, what's your opinion on, those gift cards that you can buy at Walmart and Walgreens and stuff? If I were to purchase one of those and have it, disconnected from, because, you can do anything with, so if I bought a $25 Amazon gift card and then created a separate Amazon account, that would be one way to get around the central bank digital currency, would it not?
It's an interesting thought, Russ.
Harder to track.
I think the thing is, if you bought a bunch of those early enough, but then they're going to run out at some point, and then to buy them in the future, you would then need to use that currency. So, it'll be interesting to see how they really roll it out and what the timeline will be. But, at any point, the Federal Reserve, which is not a government agency, can just turn off the paper money. So, we'll see when they decide to do that. But I expect that to happen. And then you'll be forced to use
News. Fact check.
Yeah,
claim the Federal Reserve is launching digital currency app FedNow that will eliminate physical cash. AP's assessment, false. The Federal Reserve's FedNow is a service that allows banks and credit unions to transfer funds more quickly. It's not a form of currency, nor is it a move towards eliminating cash, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System stated.
Yeah, well, right now maybe it's not, but they could tomorrow
way-
make it that.
The
So
way to
sure,
get it in.
you know, there's
Of
the
course, they
spin in
would
that message. Yeah.
totally tell us.
No, we
They
don't
would
believe what they
They would
say.
totally tell us if it were. They were like,
Believe them for a
hey
second.
guys, are you guys using this to replace cash and create a digital dollar and create social credit scores? No.
You know what? I had a thought the other day.
Right.
SM Dorser has a question for Chris, but before that, hold on. You know how I was saying that like people, well, I didn't tell you guys that, but Amazon, people literally use Amazon for literally everything. So I was thinking, you know how Amazon is going to be that first one to go to that one touch thing? Well, I was thinking if tomorrow all these people who rely on Amazon for everything now, if they go to like, you can only use Amazon if you're using this one touch thing that we have, then boom, right away, people are going to be like freaking out because it's just gotten normal now, just getting deliveries, you know? So they might say, hey, you can't use Amazon without using this one touch. So I know
I think that's a great point, Liberty, because that's exactly what they'll do too. They'll go to those,
and you want that stuff, and
right. Yeah, and
DG
most
will be
people,
fine.
I mean, they're doing that Palm thing now at a lot of the Whole Food stores. So, and I guess those stores are still in business, so people are going along with it, right?
Right. So, but if it's taken away, literally, like you're just saying, something we get so used to it, and it's like tomorrow you can't ever use Amazon ever again unless you use this one touch thing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people will pick convenience over,
Exactly,
the alternative, and standing up to it. And that's looking at history. That's why unfortunately, my outlook is not that positive on a lot of these things, because most people just kind of go along with it. Not too many people are like us or our audience, where they're really dedicated to their own personal liberty and freedom. And a lot of people just are against the Constitution. They think it's outdated. And as far as like the gold and silver thing, we have mentioned that on the show. I still think it's a really good time. Again, this isn't financial advice, but yeah, if you have the ability to diversify into the precious metal markets, I still think it's going to be one of the best investments in our lifetime as we enter into the Great Depression and this change in the currency, because it's a true store of value. It is a limited resource, and generally, if you look back throughout history, it resets in value. So it'll, if they go to this digital currency, or when they do, and there's a call, for the paper money, and they make that, essentially worthless, which it really already is, then those prices would naturally spike up. And it's a store of value. You can easily trade it, and that technically would still be, untraceable unless they tried to call in the metals again somehow, like they've done in the past. But I don't know.
They made it illegal for private citizens to have precious metals.
Yeah,
country,
which
right?
is kind of crazy too.
But...
Yeah, sure. But I guess, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but of course you'd have to voluntarily kind of give that in to, the authorities if you choose to do so. So, but yeah, I can't think of a time we've been weaker. I mean, all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, and I think there's going to be some major issues with Taiwan coming up. Make another prediction on the air too. I think there might be some earthquakes over in that area of the world, which is going to disrupt the silicon chips coming out of that area. And I think China's going to make a move.
Nostradamus coming out again.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'm seeing some really interesting moves out of that area from some of the largest investors right now globally. People like Warren Buffett, he just pulled out like $4 billion from one of the largest semiconductor plants over there for various reasons. So, be an interesting time to short some of those companies, but and the stuff China's doing, and Brandon's not going to stand up to them, and there's only so much time before the next election. So if they don't make a move on Taiwan, I would be kind of shocked at this point, because that's just the direction, in my opinion, things are going, and that's going to have major consequences here at home economically. So I think we're about to enter into some pretty tumultuous times. Not that we haven't already, but it's gonna heat up again here pretty quick, I think. So watch for the earthquakes.
He sees the world like in numbers. I actually was questioning him the other day about like how he sees the world, old patterns. He sees like
patterns,
numbers when he looks at things, guys. So I don't know. I think we should be listening.
Yeah, there's some patterns out there.
Mitchell
Chris,
says, I believe Arizona is building a new chip factory.
I have heard some things about that. I mean, it'd be great if we brought more of that home. It's insane to me that we've given
You
them
know,
that.
they have the Utz factory over in Lancaster County. I'm
Wait,
just not a
chips
big
doesn't
chips guy myself.
You're not a nuts guy, is that what you said, Mike? Yeah.
No, they
Yeah.
they have the Utz factory in Lancaster County, but
Mm.
I'm just not a big chips eater.
Oh, like
Yeah.
chips as an actual chips. I thought it was like some kind of implanted chip.
They really are bad. I mean, they're very inflammatory, and you got a lot of the oils and all that in there. I mean, they are good every now and then.
Liberty thinks we're serious.
Chris, I was wondering, do you think there will be an underground cash-like currency when the CBDC launches?
I
you
think
think there'll
people
be
are
a-
going to go back to bartering, and I know people are getting ready for that. A lot of people who have stocked up on supplies, or people who are growing their own food or have chickens or animals. I mean, I think that will be, trading services, if you know how to do handyman kind of work, or
The Vikings did.
I think those types of things would be the new underground, and that would be a little harder, I think, to control, if you will. But who knows what they're going to do? I mean, the tyranny that we've experienced and we're about to see unleashed upon the United States, in my opinion, is going to be something we've never seen before, and it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's really unfortunate, but not enough people have stood up to it. So
I know it's serious, but I keep thinking of jokes. I was like, Philly Chris, can I trade my ketchup for some mustard, please? I don't have much to trade.
I do like Heinz ketchup every now and then, although that's mostly just sugar.
I
so
like
it's not
Heinz,
that good for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mustard.
It is sugar. Russ, are you hiding in a cave somewhere? You sound so far.
I do need some Zyrtec, Denise. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a little bit under the weather, but I'm getting back there. I need some antibiotics this time. Haven't been sick in a while, though.
Did you guys hear that Biden officially ended I think he officially ended the emergency zucchini.
I did see that.
The emergency
Turnip.
radish? No, turnip.
Yeah, turnip.
Something.
The radish.
Fruits and veggies.
But I did
know what the
see
problem
something
was.
about
If I
the
speak
Ebola
too funny,
virus
I-
emerging somewhere. But yeah, anyway.
If anybody's interested in learning more about the precious metals market, there's a guy on YouTube, Mike Maloney. I've been following him for years. I'd love to get him to come on the program. Maybe I'll try to reach out to him. And he's been doing a lot of videos recently about, what he feels is going to happen. And a lot of what I learned in detail is from him, Michael Maloney. If you want to check him out on YouTube, he's pretty good.
I heard that Michael Knight's coming on the program.
DG, that was funny.
Yeah, this is an opportune time to mention that. Yeah,
DG,
the
it's
27th, we have him booked for the 27th, right, Mike? 27th.
Michael Knight.
Yeah, Michael Knight.
I want
He
to tell
is-
DG that I don't survive it. I just take some tea myself. I just take some tea shots. That's the thing now.
Tea is good.
Just kidding.
I've been drinking some ginger tea.
No,
Tell
tea.
us about
no, tea as in tea. You know, the tea.
the tea. Oh, the tea.
Tea for two.
It's very casual now. A lot of women just take some tea,
Some tea. What's the tea?
Read DG's comment.
Liberty, I don't know how you survived the testosterone on the show.
Tea.
Oh, the tea. Okay. I
Drugs
see it now.
bad.
Oh, come on, Denise. Come on. You love the tea, don't you?
So Harper says, look back to what the Argentinians did during their economic collapse decades ago. Cheap gold ring, food, and ammo is the new money. Another listener says, I started a worm farm to prepare. A lot of people saving up money for the worm farm,
Worm farm?
I knew these guys because they're very expensive. So these two guys, they were saving up money for a worm farm. And then one of them was driving this lady to the airport, and she left her suitcase. And these guys ended up driving all the way out to Aspen to try to get her the suitcase, but they burned all the money they were going to spend on the worm farm.
I like it. Got to have
Sad
some
story.
worms.
Isn't that dope?
I don't understand this.
I loved every part of it.
Really?
I
Can you imagine
believe-
if worms became like currency?
Worms are good. They make good soil. You can go fishing with them.
I felt
all
bad the
kinds
other
of
day.
stuff,
One was
yeah.
stuck in my garage, and
Mm.
it was like half in, half out. It was not good.
You know what they were gonna call the worm farm, right?
What was it going to be called?
I got worms.
I got worms.
Yeah.
I got worms.
Yeah.
That's very creative. I like it. Thank you, Denise. I'll hold
Their
you to
names were Lloyd and Harry, and the girl that they were chasing, her name was Mary
Jane.
Samsonite. I was way off. I'm
Oh, there
sorry.
you go. That's a big
Samsonite.
name, Samsonite. Yeah, they make good luggage, don't they? Were they the ones gorillas could jump on and stuff? Samsonite. Remember those commercials? You guys are probably too young for that.
I ventured a different
Chris
dimension.
and his old
I don't
people
know what you guys are
references.
talking about.
No, they I think they showed that they gave all the Samsonite luggage to a bunch of like a gorilla, and the thing was smashing it and jumping up and down on it and couldn't break it. I don't know. Does anybody else remember that marketing, or am I just so super old that I'm making stuff up now?
Yeah, no. It for some reason that reminded me of marketing, which reminded me of the Bud Light controversy, which reminded me of that you guys didn't know last week what it was all about.
Oh
yeah.
And I think since I've just found out that it's just about the fact that they use a transgender on the company.
I wonder. I always try to look at things, especially when there's such a big financial move. I wonder if anybody could do tracking on who's shorting that stock, because it literally lost $5 billion. And I can't imagine the people really, truly in control of that marketing campaign thought that was going to go well. Like, how could you not understand your audience?
That's funny that you said that, because one of the Fox News hosts who was a financial analyst said something like that. They were like, whoever that marketing, how did they lose $5 billion? Like, they didn't think that through.
Yeah, I mean, and then those pictures were released of the woman who was in charge of the marketing campaign who made fun of like the frat. Did you guys see that? Like,
yeah.
And whatever, you go to college, you have a good time, like, beer, you go through that phase of your life, and you can hire whoever you want to do your marketing. But I mean, I did go to business school, and I specifically remember my multiple professors saying, just stay out of politics. Why alienate any customers? Like, why get involved in any of it? So to take a position that's so divisive right now just doesn't seem to be a good idea. But go woke, go broke, I guess.
Michael Jordan said Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Really, Chris, I didn't know you went to business school. How did I not know that?
I don't know.
Wow.
No secret there. I mean, undergraduate, not MBA or anything, but
Yeah.
Those numbers. Mike, there's a question for you in the comments.
What is it?
Rapid question from user 12312. What does Mike G think about tall people getting asked how tall they are from strangers?
What? Tall people getting asked how tall
It should
they
be
are.
the new segment on the show where we ask Mike G random question.
Do you get that question sometimes, Mike? Will people ask you how tall you are?
I do.
Yeah.
And I always like to give a ridiculous answer, like 5'8".
That's good. That's good. My buddy Stu, for a little while, we talked about him on the show because he's 6'5". He literally had cards he would carry around with him because so many people would ask him, like, how tall are you? And he'd hand him a card and be like, I really am 6'5".
5'8".
That's better though. I like that better.
Yeah.
So then they'll be like, no, you're not.
Who was overdressed, DG?
You're gonna tell me?
SM Durso remembered the commercials. Thanks. Thanks, Durso. Yeah, they were pretty.
As I'm thinking about it, I believe that when I went to go visit my buddy in Missouri, we stayed with his family, and they lived on the same block as like the Anheuser-Busch CEO or owner or something like that. I forget exactly with all this going on. What else is going on in the world? Anything else?
We can talk
Um,
about that.
What? Oh, did anybody see the Stormy interview?
Oh yeah,
No.
Piers Morgan. You got to watch that.
Pierce
Oh, no, I
Morgan.
haven't seen that. Yeah.
I had to see
Yeah.
it for myself.
I will say this: she comes off as credible.
Hmm.
I will say that because when you used to watching witnesses figuring out why they're lying and everything like that, she throws just enough credit at certain points Trump's way and is honest about certain things that wouldn't necessarily make her look good or wouldn't necessarily make Trump look bad, that you get the impression she comes off as being honest and credible. So we'll see.
Something Hillary didn't do very well. Just saying.
I did put the luggage commercial in the doc if anybody wants to see it. It's only 30 seconds long. Maybe it'd be a fun way to taper off to the end of the show. I don't know.
What's that?
Oh, I put the commercial in the doc. I just found it on YouTube of the gorilla with the luggage.
Samsonite?
It's
Oh.
actually American Tourist, so I had the company wrong, but who knows? Maybe they're.
It's not Samsonite.
I guess it was American Tourister.
Mike,
Are they even
what-
around
They still
anymore?
exist.
I don't know. Maybe they're part of Samsonite,
Hmm.
but I don't know if you want to play it. It could be
Wait,
fun.
one more thing from Mike, which is there was a UFC player who gave a shout out to Donald J. Trump, who came to the UFC. Right?
Oh, fights were great. Fights were great. Trump was there with Kid Rock and Mike Tyson.
Hmm.
Did you see those pictures?
I missed that.
It's Dana White, Donald
I feel like
Trump.
I
Mike-
saw it.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I misheard what you were saying. Yes, that was pretty cool. Yeah.
the fights were great. And Trump
Mhm.
watched them with Dana White, Kid Rock, and Mike Tyson.
He looks
And-
very cool, calm, and collected.
and Masvidal. And somebody's got a video somewhere. I saw this. I forget if it was on YouTube or Twitter, but somebody in the crowd was videotaping Trump and Kid Rock right after the last fight, the knockout. And Trump reaches into his pocket, takes out money, and hands it over to Kid Rock. So they must have bet on the fight, and
Oh really?
Trump
That's
lost to
funny.
Kid Rock.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was great.
Could that be illegal?
What, betting on a fight?
Yeah.
They're not taking a rake or anything like that.
Okay.
Right?
That's
It's not
funny.
like they're taking bets and then
Gotcha.
shaving
Okay. Just
shaving
like
off of
Kid
it.
Rock.
being buddies or something. Yeah. Okay. That's funny.
If you take a cut. Now I'm not, not any sports wagering lawyer or anything like that, so don't take that as legal advice.
Right. We should bet on the next fight.
But,
That
oh
was
yeah, and
cool.
Jorge Masvidal, after his fight, he retired and got a "Let's Go Brandon" chant going in the arena. When Trump walked in, it went nuts. Place went nuts.
Yeah.
He looks very chill with Trump. I don't know. He was very calm.
Yeah.
Eric
but,
was
you know,
there. Eric Trump was there. Don was there.
I'm sure Brandon got more votes though.
That's definitely his people, and I was thinking about that. I wonder why that's his people. They really like him in the UFC because they think they're just all fighters, They fight.
Yeah, it's the demographic. Even when he showed up to the Garden in New York, the place went nuts.
Well, didn't years ago he was like actually involved in a little skit fight with some of them or something on the side of the ring years ago?
Oh, well, that was different.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because that was WWF with Vince
Okay.
McMahon, but
Mhm.
they're going to have the same parent company as of like 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
doing really well. It's pretty wild.
So,
Doing well.
but Trump early on in mixed martial arts, where it was very difficult for the UFC to find places to hold fights, allowed them to hold an event over at one of his casinos in Atlantic City, and that's how him and Dana became friends. And Dana's outwardly supported him.
Oh yeah. Dana White had a little incident himself, but that's for another day.
Yeah, I suppose so. All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
Are you going to show Philly Chris's commercial?
Oh, yeah. So the commercial. Yeah.
All right.
How about pull it up before you show the entire screen?
Russ did good this week. I'll vouch for him.
Go Russ.
We at American Tourister know that when your suitcase is out of your hands, it's out of your hands. That's why American Tourister suitcases are reinforced with strong stainless steel frames and solid locks that won't spring open on contact. Sure, you may pay a little more in the beginning, but it'll sure pay in the end. American Tourister. It's not just how good it looks, it's how long it looks good.
Chris brought that up because he was actually the one in the monkey suit.
That's right.
Listen, guys,
Not to be
you're gonna
confused
want to have this type of luggage just in case a gorilla gets loose in the
Right.
back of the airport.
I had-
You never know.
That was
You
Mike-
never know when a gorilla is gonna get loose in the back of the airport.
I think it was good marketing. They sold a lot of suitcases. My family actually had those suitcases, and they were really good because they had like a metal thing. Anybody, in the program, whoever owned them, they really are solid.
Are they not out
Still-
of business now?
I don't know. I'll have to check on that. We'll,
You should keep it for a bartering tool, Philly Chris, just in case.
I bet they're still in demand because they're really good suitcases. Like they have a big metal channel around the edge and it kind of locked and sealed. So much better than the flimsy stuff you see nowadays, actually. Yeah. And there's a lot of gorillas at the airport these days, so you gotta be careful.
You call it flimsy, I call it flexible.
User 12 at it again with his comments. For her.
Yeah. Gotta figure out who that is.
Is it about that time, Chris?
I think it's about that time, brother.
Is it about that time?
Peace and love, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Good show. I really enjoyed listening to you and Rich, by the way. That was good.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Justice Brothers reunite.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the time we got for today. Stick around for We the People, the Constitution Matters, Investigation Witness, Defense of Philadelphia. I'll be joining as your legal analyst. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.